Hi, welcome to Blacticulate, a podcast series featuring UK young black professionals, where we find out how they do what they do, so you can too. Or not. After all, it is your life. Hey guys, it's Ade here. Welcome to another episode of Blacticulate. Guys, I don't know if you know, but we're officially 2 years old. Jeez, we've learned a lot of lessons and we would love to share that with you. But speaking of lessons and sharing, today's episode is with Rob Campbell. Now, Rob Campbell is a HR recruiter for software engineers. And at the time of recording, he worked for Google. And I believe now he works for Facebook. Rob is a great guy and he shares his story on how he got into recruitment, best pieces of advice, resources on becoming a recruiter like him. And he flipped it, giving us best piece of advice on how to ensure recruiters like him find you and can help you out on your career path. So guys, this is just a great episode, full stop, of understanding how to position oneself for professional success. Anyway, guys, as always, please do give us any feedback. Please do review, do share, do comment on the podcast wherever you're listening to this on, be it our YouTube channel, be it our website, or be it on Apple Podcasts or SoundCloud, because it really helps. You guys are the best. We'll speak to you on the other side. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Blacticulate. As you already know, I hope you already know, it's all about featuring young UK black professionals, where we try and find out how they do what it is they do. So guess what? You can too. So it's all about the resources, the tools, the best bits of advice on how to get into a profession. And today we've got a special episode. Ain't that right, Rob?
It's exactly that. Exactly that.
Rob, please tell the listeners, my peoples, who you are, what you do, and we just chop it up from there.
Okay, brilliant. All right. So my name's Rob Campbell. I'm a technical sourcer. I work for Google currently. Been there for 4 years. I've been in the recruitment industry for 6 years. What I'm passionate about is diversity, and getting people who look like myself into things like coding. That's the thing that drives me and gets me going. So that's a little bit about me.
So technical recruiter.
Yeah.
Right. What does that mean?
Good question. So this is the thing. There's a lot of acronyms that are thrown around in the industry, but what a technical recruiter essentially does is they will find the best technical talent out there for a specific company. So if you're working in an agency, that could mean you working for a variety of companies. But if you work in-house, like what I do for Google, it just means for specific projects within the company. So it's essentially that. So that's a mixture of working with clients to actually work out what they want, and then go into the market to find the best candidates out there for those jobs.
Okay.
So that's it, broken down.
So do you headhunt?
Yes, I'm a headhunter. Yeah, that's the perfect term to describe it. Perfect term.
So how do you do that? Because, you've been doing this for 6 years, right? So before we get into almost the rungs and how entries, but I'm just curious, how do you headhunt? Yeah,
so there are a variety of tools out there that allow recruiters to do this. So the most obvious one, and I think most people who are listening to this will be on this, is LinkedIn.
And if you're not on it, guys, you should be on it.
Right. That's a great tip. Definitely get on LinkedIn. Please do. So LinkedIn has 500 million profiles on there. So it has everything from salespeople through to software engineers, which is what I look for, through to recruiters like me. So most people will be on there.
Right.
So that is our bread and butter as a recruiter, where we find most of our people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And then I assume once you found someone, then you approach them and just gauge their interest in whether or not they want to work for said company.
So it's exactly that. So I think a big part of what a recruiter does is research.
Okay.
So you're going to research this person's background. You won't just be looking at, their LinkedIn profile. As well as that, you'll be looking at things which they have online. So it might be like a GitHub profile, which is an open source project repository where this person may or may not be contributing code to that project. Right. So you can have a look at the things that they're doing in their spare time to gauge as to whether they're a good candidate or not. So a lot of what I do is research. So we're researchers, if you were to whittle it down to the nitty-gritty.
That's interesting in and of itself, because a lot of the times you would just assume that what's on one's resume is the qualification or the qualifier.
Yeah.
But actually what you're saying is you look outside of what's just on the paper.
Definitely.
To see whether or not that person is a good candidate, good fit.
I agree. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think, degree can tell you certain things. Qualifications can tell you certain things. But what you want to gauge is as to whether a candidate is a good fit for that company. And so, for instance, at Google, we're looking for the best of the best. And often it's hard to distinguish between the best of the best through just a degree.
Yeah. No,
so it's more to do with the things they do outside, in my opinion, which is why I always encourage people who I speak to, especially kids trying to get into the industry, that they should be doing things in their spare time, because it's not just about the university that you went to or the degree that you took. I've seen people who they do wild things like social sciences in their degree, but then they go on to do computer science in their spare time, and then they've got degrees with great companies. So it's possible, It's not just about your degree.
No, I hear that. Okay, fair enough. So, question: was this always the dream? Like, I mean, little Rob waking up one time, and
2 years old, dreaming of being a recruiter.
Yeah, surely. No, what? So, what was your dream, and how did we? Let's try and join the dots. How did we end up in recruitment?
So, trust me, no one.
Your background
chooses this industry, and if they tell you that, I know they're a lie. This industry is a great industry. You're at the forefront of technology. You're helping to build some of the best companies out there, but I tell you now, no one chooses this. So what I wanted to do when I was younger was to be in politics, trade unions. I wanted to change the world.
Right.
And it didn't work out like that. So just to give you a little bit of my background, I wrote a degree in history. In my summers, I was actually like a scaffolder, which is crazy. So I was working in construction on the building site just to make some money.
In London?
In London, yeah. Which is nice in the summer.
Yeah.
Not so nice in the winter, I'll tell you that. And then after my degree, I was thinking, I wrote my history degree. I wanted to, to make a difference to people's lives. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to do my internships unpaid. I'm paying for myself through construction, so I'm gonna make my way into the industry.
Right.
But it never is like that easy, which is the way it is. It's not unfortunate. It's just the way it is.
Life, right?
That's exactly it. So I got a break in recruitment for an agency called Hanover Recruitment, and they were amazing, little boutique agency. They taught me literally everything I know, and it's where I learned that you don't have to, do what is prescribed for you. Do you know what I mean? You can carve your own role and carve your own ways of making an impact in other ways. And I saw recruitment as my way of doing that, which is by helping people get jobs and get into the industry who wouldn't traditionally be able to do so. So that's my thing.
Interesting. So hold up, history degree. First and foremost, what?
Yeah. Why? Do you know what? People always say that. And people always say
You're
that.
a black brother. Why do you want to go back to the past?
Do you know what? People always say that. They're always like, what?
Yeah.
You studied history? Are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I love it. I absolutely think that you can't understand the present or the future without, understanding the past. I know it sounds cliched.
No, but I know where you're coming from.
But it's true, I love the fact that, we can delve into the past now in ways that we haven't done before. It's so accessible to everyone. We've got the internet. We've got access to political documentations that 25 years ago, were classified. So this is the things that are at our disposal. And, what history has shown me is that, you can find out what you want, and it's at your fingertips, So
what do you do with that, though? Okay, knowing, I understand it's your route. So is it in a hope not to actually repeat the same mistake sort of thing? Or is it just a fascination of
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. I know you're trying to delve in. I think it is so that you can learn from the mistakes of the past.
Right.
Because for instance, if you look at all of the crazy stuff that has happened over the past few years in politics, whether you agree with it or not, we're seeing the UK leave the European Union.
Yeah.
We've seen Donald Trump rise to the forefront of the most powerful office in the world.
Yeah.
Again, whether you agree with it or not, we've seen things like this happen in the past. And this is to do with xenophobia, in my opinion. It's to do with fear of the other. So it's about that. If you can learn about the past, you can make better decisions in the present. So I didn't vote for Brexit, but maybe people, if they knew about the things that happened in the past, maybe they may have chosen to make different decisions, So this is the kind of thing, it can be applied to anything in your life.
No, I hear that. So if I'm doing that and enjoying it, I hope. What uni did you go to? Just happened to.
I went to Goldsmiths.
Goldsmith, okay.
Goldsmiths, South London.
South London.
South.
South. Also, and then during like the, I guess, summer holidays or whenever you had breaks, or even maybe throughout, you were working on construction sites. Right?
Exactly that. Exactly that.
So what was your mindset insofar as like all of a sudden then you go to this boutique recruitment agency? I mean, there's a bit of a gap here.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
What, between university and agency?
University doing construction,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
can understand that. But then all of a sudden you find yourself in this boutique
Yeah.
recruitment agency.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, again, it was just kind of like chance. I was
Okay.
applying for so many different jobs. I was supposed to, I thought, go into like politics or something, but that wasn't happening.
Right.
So you have to try to do some kind of graduate job. And I think at the time, it was when like austerity happened,
Right, recession.
the recession, so it was difficult.
So you wanted any job.
I needed anything, that's the
Right,
truth.
gotcha.
Like, I just needed to get on the ladder.
Okay.
So recruitment seemed like a good career. The people who I was working with were smart, they were bright at what they did. And I saw myself, carving, a path this way.
Okay, so you knew people like in recruitment prior.
No, so I didn't actually. But like when you go to interviews,
Okay, then you felt the atmosphere whilst
you
you're
can gauge
interviewing.
how people are, but just by speaking to them. And that's another thing that I really, really like. I like interacting with people. So recruitment, like, tick that box, if that makes sense.
No, it definitely does. Because I think, from my perspective anyway, it's more a case of you're going down one route with a hope or intention to go into politics, right? But, just being on construction is obviously paying a bit of, bread, a bit of cheese, a bit of whatever you want in that
Definitely.
garage. The Jaguar, I see you. I see you, G. My man's
That's it,
flossing
that's
out
it.
here, Tom Ford suits.
I definitely wasn't wearing that then, that's for sure.
But you were like, oh, damn it, okay, austerity, recession, I just need to actually get a graduate job, for want of a better term, right? And you don't think construction was that for you. So you applied, just put out your CV out there, and recruitment seemed to be a path
Definitely, 100%.
because you liked interacting with people and you thought, okay, let me see, I'm sure I can do this job.
Yeah, it was exactly that.
Okay.
And I think that it's a very difficult profession. I'm not even going to try and sugarcoat it.
Yeah,
Recruitment
please
is
tell.
tough.
Yeah.
So what my job essentially was back then was you had to develop like business. So you had to bring in business to the company. So by speaking to organisations who are looking for a certain skill set, and you have to show them that you're able to go to market to find that skill set. So that's the business development side.
Right.
But then there's also the sourcing part, which is to go to market and find candidates who would be a good fit for those roles that you've just brought in. So there's two sides to the job, and it's what you learn from doing this job is about things like time management, which I still struggle with now, but you have to do this. The other things that you learn is about working out how to win people over.
Right.
Because most of these companies can deal with any agency out there, and there is a ton of agencies, trust me,
Yeah.
all doing the same thing that you're doing. So it's difficult in that regard. And I think as well, it's a job where what you put in is what you get out.
Right, okay.
So there is opportunities to earn a lot of money in recruitment, but it's about having that drive and motivation to push yourself, because what you run essentially is your own desk. So
Yeah.
your bosses will be there to guide you, but you have to push yourself. I was lucky that I worked in like a really cool agency with great people who some of them I work with now at Google. So yeah, they were a top agency, and like my manager, I'll mention him now. So Thomas Lennon, he was like fantastic. He kind of guided me on how I could fit into the industry, if you know what I mean, because this wasn't something that I was used to. Going from things like construction into like an office is difficult, and as well as that, it's just a tough adjustment, so he helped me make that adjustment.
Recruitment, because as you rightly said, I mean, there's a plethora and it's quite a saturated market. So is it in one's benefit to be quite niche within recruitment? Because you specifically do technical.
That's right. Yeah.
Hence your passion, especially it comes to coding and sourcing, and hence you work for one of, I guess, the most renowned tech giant firms, Google. What are they? I mean, what would you describe Google as?
I think they are like probably the most innovative like tech company out there.
Okay, they are a
It's the
tech
truth.
company.
Yeah, they're a tech company, definitely. Their mission is to make the world's data accessible to everyone, which is like an amazing ethos, because very few companies I imagine have an ethos like that. On the most part it is about profitability, but I think Google is a little bit more than that.
So let's talk about, if it's okay, because you said your passion really and truly is to try and ensure people who look like us, who speak like us, who come from the same background, have opportunities at such companies like Google, Facebook, whatever, right? So the question I almost want to ask you then is, what is the best piece of advice to give people like us to have these opportunities or to take full advantage of them? Does that make sense as a question?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. That's a great question. I think for me, it's about seeing these organizations, all of these top companies, as accessible. You know, there are people that look like us there, and you know, these companies are willing to hire people who look like us. You know, I think like the sad thing is that when you speak to a lot of engineers who are from maybe certain backgrounds, and not just black, but you know, minority ethnic, or also, you know, female engineers as well, people who are disabled. You know, there is sometimes, I suppose, a stigma about applying for companies. I think that's just the first step, you know, just apply. You know, you never know. I think the best way how you can get into the industry is not just about having a degree in the field that you want to go into. And I'm not just talking about computer science. Right. It could be anything. It could be marketing. It could be sales. You know, think about how you can make yourself attractive to companies like this by doing this stuff in your spare time. So like some of the best coders out there will be doing things like coding competitions. You know, they'll be doing things like open source work and building amazing things with developers all over the world without even being recognized by companies. Some of the best developers out there would have started coding when they were 12 by just messing around in their spare time. Yeah. You know, these are the kind of things that you can do, and it's not just about like a degree, and that's one of the things that I want to make clear. Yeah. You know, you can make yourself really attractive.
No, I mean, I absolutely get that, and I believe in that ethos. But I'm just wondering, is there any like specific like platforms that companies such as, you know, that you work for look at? Because you mentioned GitHub earlier on. I'm not familiar with GitHub, but I assume, well, I'm hoping maybe those who are coders who maybe, is that a common thing? Is that a common platform?
Yeah, so I can't really like comment on what like specific companies do, and even I can't really comment on what Google does in regards to looking for candidates. It's the truth. However, what I can say is that, you know, GitHub it's essentially like a platform which is for coders all over the world, so regardless of where they are, to contribute to projects in parallel with each other, essentially. So it could be anything. It could be like someone's C++ spare time project, which they're building like a game. You know, and then someone from Russia could be working on that and contributing code to this, and then also someone from London, Hackney. You know, so this is essentially what that is. And I think the cool thing about this is that it is accessible to everyone in the world. So if you're a engineer or a recruiter, you will get noticed if you're building something which is of interest to them. You know, so bear that in mind.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so let's flip the tables again and go back into recruitment, if that's cool. So if I was listening, I'd be like, you know what, Rob? Yeah, he's the one, you know. He's a legend.
I don't know about that, but yeah.
Yeah. How can I myself then, what do I need to know personally where I can be like, I actually am or could be a very good recruiter?
Yeah. Yeah.
And do I need to be in an agency? Do I need to be in-house? Or can I just be a headhunter myself?
Yeah.
Like,
good questions.
They're different paths.
They
almost,
are, yeah.
Right? So
yeah.
What do I need to see in myself to know that I can do this job?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question, Andy. Great question. So just to make clear, so my job is quite a small part of the recruitment cycle. Right. You know, so I'm a sourcer, a headhunter. So that means I have to go out to market and find the candidates. So there's ways that you can learn these skills, and they're accessible to everyone. Okay. So there's a couple of blogs that I used to read when I was coming up in recruitment. So there was one called SourceCon. SourceCon. So
SourceCon, guys. Anything we talk about, as you know, I did my best to put in the show notes. Yeah. So we'll get this down for you.
Amazing. Yes, amazing. SourceCon. Yeah. So SourceCon is one. There's another one called Boolean Black Belt, which is another blog. You know, so what this essentially is updates and posts from some of the best sources in the industry who have written about how to find the best candidates.
Amazing.
You know, so like an example of that is, you know, how to search on LinkedIn using Boolean logic. You know, so Boolean logic is essentially like it's an engineering term, but this same term can be applied to search engines, which allows you to leverage it to find the information that you want by removing and putting in information. That's essentially what it is broken down. So you can teach yourself these principles quite easily. I mean, you could teach yourself that in an afternoon. You were talking about, you know, as well as like the different routes and how to get into each, you know, so like in full cycle recruitment, which is the business development part, you know, if you're someone who is driven, if you're someone who is, you know, really able to speak to people, you know, and I don't mean you have to be extroverted and, you know, jumping around the room and, you know what I mean, like all bubbly. That you don't have to be like that, but you can be introverted, but be someone who is quite personable and able to talk to people and understand people. You know, if you have that skill as well, that would be perfect. As well as that, you also have to be someone who's quite curious, you know, because you want to know what the best technologies are out there, what the best companies are, doing this or X, Y, or Z. You want to know who the best engineers are out there. That's what you need. That's the kind of skills that you need to have. I think as well as that, like, if you were to be doing like full cycle, you have to be a mixture of all of those. And a lot of agencies now will expect that skill set. I think in-house roles are they can be hard to come by, because they expect you to have that agency experience, to have been used to working in an environment which is driven, which is tough, So that's probably, to be honest and to be transparent, that is what a lot of in-house jobs will expect.
Yeah, so from an in-house perspective, agency side experience is often the route in.
It can be. That's not all. That's, but
not
you know
always,
what?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
of course,
I don't want
anomalies.
to.
You can't say categorically, because as in you guys, you always know that this is just advice as well, and it's based off one subject as opposed to necessarily the role. So it's always
I can only speak for myself, and I'm not speaking for any companies or any specific organisations. But like, you can get into in-house in a loads of different ways. You can go through HR, and what I mean by that is by like human resources jobs. So you can do a human resources job and then go into recruitment maybe, but the people who I've seen go into in-house has been through agency recruitment, because of the skills and I suppose learnings that you get from doing and working in that environment.
Question: Are you happy?
You're very
as
much
in,
so.
When I say happy, as in you no regrets insofar as the route, because you're not a politician anymore, and it's quite apparent, it's very palpable that you're phenomenal at your job, and you definitely have an eye on the industry, particularly the tech and the coding industry, and what makes a great candidate. Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, what are the challenges, I guess, and what are the
I think to go back, like I'm happy. Like I can say that what I've been given in my life, like, is a blessing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've worked for the best company in the world for the past 4 years, as well as that I've worked for another company, TripAdvisor. I've worked for one of the best agencies out there. I've been very lucky to work with some of the people that I've worked with. So I'm very fortunate in that regard. So I've got no regrets, I mean, there are things which are tough sometimes. I think recruitment can be one of those industries which you will have really, really bad times where nothing goes right. Do you know what I mean?
What does that mean? What does that look like?
So because it's a sales role, essentially.
Okay.
Sales is not easy. And I think the hardest type of sales is when you're selling people, which sounds quite dodgy, but like, especially with the audience, but you know what I mean? Yeah. So,
I know what you mean.
so like, you have to be able to ride the tough and the good times. That's what I mean. So you'll have times when none of your candidates are willing to take jobs, or they're not playing ball and don't want to speak to you. But you have to know that, okay, cool, if I maintain a relationship with this person, when they're ready and when their time is right, they'll come back to me because I've kept a good relationship with them. So you have to be quite resilient, I'd say, and I've learned that over the years. So that's probably like the toughest thing about recruitment, is you have to be like quite a strong-minded person. It isn't for the faint-hearted, and I'm not just saying that to be cliched.
No, I get that. I've had a plethora of bad experiences actually with recruiters, if I'm going to be candid with you. Yeah. Because I just don't think I do well in, like.
What are they like? What were they like?
Okay, so I had one in particular who was trying to push me for a couple of roles, and I was just like, it doesn't sound for me, it doesn't sound right for me. I don't think he actually understood my desires and where I want to go to. Okay. And she ended up, I won't name and shame, but she ended up telling me that I won't be anybody in this industry, that I'm absolutely useless, that because I didn't want to be pushed into the roles she wanted to, make me apply for. And I thought to myself, surely that's not the attitude, especially if you want me on your side. But then we've got to flip it around as well. I am money to her.
I understand.
Do you know?
Yeah.
So I need her to be on my side, because she's the one that can open potential good job roles for me, or good doors. But it was just such a bad experience that, I ended up obviously not working with her.
I understand.
And but you see that dynamic?
I think it's tough though, isn't it?
Yeah. It's to and fro. It's like, from a recruiter's perspective, you do want great candidates on your book, right? But also from a candidate perspective, you also want great recruiters on your book.
No, I agree.
Now, is there a rule of thumb on how many recruiters you should have, or agencies representing you?
No, do you know what? Like, to be honest, I think you should be looking to work with recruiters who provide the good candidate experience, who, you want to work with. Because at the end of the day, it's like, it's a quite important thing in your life, isn't it? Like, to get a job.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you trust that person. What I'd also say, like, I mean, I probably wouldn't have said this if I didn't have the recruitment experience, but, that lady, whoever she is, must have been going through a tough time in work, and there's probably reasons why she was probably too pushy, so she may not be actually like that, so I can kind of understand from that perspective. But I think what she needs to get, obviously, is that, this is a big time for you, and it's like whether you want to change job will be dependent a big part on how she treats you.
100%.
And that wouldn't make you want to leave, would it? So I think that there is no golden rule as to how many recruiters you should deal with, or what agencies. I would never point out specific companies or say that you shouldn't deal with certain people. But however, I would say, it depends on the relationship that you have with them. That's what I think.
Okay. So we've spoken about some tools. We've spoken about the resources and blogs you use. Spoken about the sort of personality types, which is great. Is there anything specific, like from a recruitment perspective, that we've overlooked and we haven't given, or we haven't spoken or told the audience about?
I think one of the things that I wanted to talk about is about learning.
Okay.
One of the things that I've tried to do when I've learned something is to try to share that with other people so that they can, take advantage of that and hopefully recreate the blessings that I've had. It's the truth. So, I've done that with things like the knowledge that I know when it comes to getting into coding.
Okay.
I've also tried to share my learnings of the recruitment industry with people so that they can have a good experience as well. Because I've had a great experience. I've got no regrets, and I think that hopefully the people who are listening, with whatever field you're going into and whatever you do, I think it's important to share that with younger people.
Right.
So whether that be...
Send that lift back down, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Because I think that's one of the things that we don't do very well in our communities, is the truth. Like, some of us will get there and make it. And I don't think it's intentional, because sometimes you have to work so hard that you sometimes forget the people who are back there who are struggling, right? Yeah. So I think it's about sharing that knowledge. And that's one of the things that I've tried to do in recruitment. And fortunately, I've been able to do that because I deal with so many people. And I'm always in contact with so many people from secondary schools or from in uni right now who are trying to think about how to get into the industry. So I've been lucky that naturally my job allows me to do that. But I think we should be trying to carve out ways of doing that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, to do it more as a system and a process as opposed to an individual effort. How do we do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we've all got brothers or sisters, and we all know people who are young people, I imagine. And I think even if you don't, there's no reason why we can't be going into schools and talking to kids when they're young. Because I saw a really interesting statistic. I think it was last week in the Guardian, talking about how there's more black people in our prisons in the UK than there are studying in top universities, as a percentage of the population, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I think a lot of that is down to the role models that we have out there. So all of us who are listening to this podcast and the people who have spoken, whether we like it or not, we're role models, right? So we should be taking it upon ourselves to go to schools and go to youth centres and clubs to actually speak to kids, to say, okay, cool, this is what people who are working at these companies look like.
Yeah.
I speak no differently to the kids who are or have had not dissimilar backgrounds to the people who are in these schools, who may choose to go down different paths.
Yeah.
But I've been fortunate enough to have what I've had in my life, that I've had a really successful career so far. So we should be looking to share that with kids in schools.
Background plays an important part, though. Your environment.
I agree.
Yeah. So, we haven't really touched upon it, but if you don't mind, what was growing up and what's your background, your environment? Yeah.
So I don't obviously want to go into too much details, but sure. I was lucky that I had an older brother and sister who grew to be quite successful. So, myself and my twin brother, so I have a twin,
okay.
We were really lucky that we had two role models there, as well as a mum who grafted and tried to give us everything. Do you know what I mean? So she never did crazy, exotic jobs, do you know what I mean? But she did things like a cleaner, she was a dinner lady, but she worked so hard and she instilled in us, all four of us, a good work ethic. And I think, my background, we didn't have much growing up, but we had more than most people, is the truth.
Right.
However, I was lucky that I had great role models, and I think I can put a lot of what I've achieved so far, which isn't that much, but I'm still moving, still trying to.
Hey man, there's a lot, and you're still moving forward.
Still moving forward, but I was lucky that I had great role models. Is the truth.
Where'd you grow up and live?
So London, so North London.
North London, where specifically?
So Camden, actually.
Camden, is it? I was going to say I saw it was Northwest or something like that. I was going to say North Wheezy. Okay, well, anyone listening from Camden, Rob's your peoples.
That's it.
Yeah, okay. No, it's interesting because work ethic is definitely important, especially if you want to sustain and continue upward trajectory.
I agree.
Right. So I feel like there isn't anything that I've overlooked to ask you, is there, from a recruitment perspective, or anything that you want to?
To be honest with you, like, to be honest with you, not really. You know, I think what you need to do is to take your career in your own hands.
Okay.
I think, like what you spoke about earlier about like recruiters and being pushy, I think you need to be the one like driving those relationships. You need to know what you want to ascertain from those relationships. Even if you don't know where you're going to end up in your career, which I never did, but have a rough idea of the kind of things that you want to achieve. You know, so for me, that was about trying to make a difference for people around me. And I've done that through recruitment by leveraging that. You know, so despite the fact I never did what I wanted to do, I've done it through that. So have a rough idea of where you want to go, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah. So what is the ultimate, I guess? What's the rungs? Because I see a lot of recruitment agencies tend to be boutiques. They tend to be very small in numbers, maybe from 3 to 10 staff max, right? And they specialize in a specific industry. Yeah. Is that your next steps? Is that what does that look like?
What for me?
Mr. Campbell.
Sounds like you're trying to recruit me, Addy.
Yeah. But, I'm trying to help a brother out. And if there's potentially anyone listening that can as well, I mean, why not? We could, raise that tide together.
Definitely. So for me, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. So I imagine I'm going to continue to do this for quite a few more years. You know, I think there's definitely more value that I can add within this. You know, I hope to do more stuff in like my spare time. So to do more, like the stuff that I was speaking about earlier. You know, it's hypocritical if I'm telling other people to go to schools and stuff like that, and I'm not doing it myself. So, you know, to go and do stuff like that. So there was a really cool organisation called Inspire.
I know them.
You know them?
Yeah. Inspire. They're epic. They're down Woolworth Road.
Yeah. They're amazing. They're amazing. So they partnered with Google and also with other companies to leverage our stuff to go into schools in Hackney and Camden and Islington and parts of South London as well, to talk to like primary school kids and to do like these really cool branding workshops, like get them to do like Dragon's Den and stuff.
Amazing.
It's really, really cool. Like I loved it. So like there's stuff out there, like, so go out and do things like that. And I want to continue to do stuff like that.
Okay, amazing. Well, I'm sure you will do. And guys, please do get in touch with Rob. I'll tell you exactly how to do that at the end. But like with all interviews I do, or conversations we have, I give light fire questions towards the end. But before I do, again, just to make sure there isn't anything that I've necessarily overlooked from a recruitment perspective.
I don't think so. I don't think so. If you read up on the blogs that I've mentioned and you read up on the industry itself, you could probably get a rough idea of it. I think as well as that, connect to me if you'd like on LinkedIn, and feel free to fire questions to me, the ones that I haven't covered with Addy.
More certainly, guys. I mean, please do get in touch because Rob is generous and he definitely will answer back. All right, you ready for some quick fire questions?
I'm ready.
Are you now?
Born ready.
Go on. Okay, apart from recruitment, since we now know that's your expertise, if you could do a TED Talks, what would it be in?
That's a great question. So you know what? I would probably do something about like socioeconomics and life chances based on your experiences. Do you know what I mean? So like I mentioned earlier about the amount of percentage of our population that goes to prison as opposed to going to elite universities. So I'd love to like talk about that and how that relates to other industries as well. So things like the tech industry or, politics as well. Look at our parliament and how many of them are black. You have politicians in other parties, I mean, regardless of your political persuasion, who don't really represent what we're trying to do, and I'm not just talking about black people, but poor people in general in the UK. So I would love to give a tech talk about that, about like life chances and how certain elements of our society is affected by that.
That'd be interesting. I'd like to hear that. I would do. So you have £5, your last £5.
Oh, yes. Okay, cool.
What are you going to be spending that on?
It wouldn't get me very far. But you know what? I would probably give it to my nieces, is the truth. I've got like 2 little nieces and a nephew, so I'd probably split it between them and let them just go crazy with it. Not that they'd buy much for it, you know what I mean? But like, let them go crazy, to be honest.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, I want to throw just a couple more, right? Because we're actually here, guys, in the National Theatre. And I'm looking to my right, and there's this fantastic billboard that goes like, "Man, I'm tired," and in brackets it goes, "of waiting." That's huge. Can you see it?
I can see it. I can see it now.
It's awesome. I might take a picture of that and put it up. So if you had a billboard like that anywhere in the world, what would you have written on it?
What would I have saying? That's a good question. Oh wow, I wasn't expecting something like this. Cheers, Addy.
No worries.
what would it be? Maybe something like, okay, I'm gonna swear F.
Yeah, no worries.
F the status quo.
Yeah.
Keep going. Do you know what I mean? So maybe something like that. You know?
I like it.
And I'd probably put it like in places where there's people who are struggling. Do you know what I mean? Because they need to be told, like, forget what people think about you. You keep going, and probably something like that.
I hear that. Okay, my penultimate question before we can find you on the World Wide Web is: how would you like to be remembered?
Oh, another good question. Okay. To be honest with you, I'm not really interested in names, or I don't want people to like know me for something which is like to be famous. That's not really my thing. I prefer not to be in the limelight like that. But I prefer the people who do know me to know that I was like quite generous with my time. Quite generous with the things that I know and have learnt, so that I could give them the same tools that I've been lucky to have. Do you know what I mean? So like maybe something like that. Probably a little bit like probably cheesy or like a bit cliche, but like
I barely know you, and I could definitely attest to the fact that you are that. You've put me in touch with many great people, and whenever we do talk, it's always blessed. It's always great stuff.
Always,
so
definitely.
I really appreciate your time and just lending your voice to Blacticulate.
It's been a pleasure, brother.
So how can we find you on the World Wide Web, and when we do, what would you like us to do?
Good question. Okay, so I'm on LinkedIn. So if you search Rob Campbell, you would find me there.
Yeah.
And as well as that, just feel free to connect. Send me any questions that you wanna ask me. That's probably the best way to connect to me. So just feel free to connect on there, I think.
Yeah, on LinkedIn. Okay, guys, I'll also put that in the show notes, as you know. So, yeah, as always, guys, make me accountable, because I'm always trying to make this better and better and better. So if there's any questions that for some reason you can't direct directly to Rob, give me a shout, yeah? Give us a shout. You know how to get in touch with us.
I just want to say just quickly, fair play to Addy for what he's been doing with Blacticulate. It's an amazing initiative, amazing podcast, and it's about us sharing that knowledge with each other. And I think, it should go a lot further than that. It should go bigger. The more people that listen to us, the better. So we should get sharing this.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much for blessing us once again. Hey guys, we really appreciate you listening, and if you have any feedback, please leave it in the comment section below. Also, all the info about the guests, the links and the resources we speak about will be in the description below. And last but not least, please do get in touch if you can teach us how you do what it is you do. Because after all, Blacticulate is all about empowering and upskilling the community. Thanks guys, you're the best. See you soon.